I used to think abandonment was something that happened in movies or in the news. Never to me. Never to a girl growing up in a quiet, white picket fence neighborhood in Westchester County, New York. But I was wrong. My name is Emily Carter, and I was 16 the night my parents threw me away like garbage. I remember the exact date, October 14th. The sky was bruised purple, the kind that warns of a coming storm. I was in my bedroom, sketching. Drawing had always been my escape. That night I was working on a portrait of my grandmother, the only person who ever looked at me like I mattered. She died when I was 12. Downstairs, my parents were fighting. Again. That wasn't new. They fought about everything. Money, each other, and most often, me. You see, I was their disappointment. My father, Richard, was a sleek real estate broker obsessed with appearances. My mother, Laura, was the queen of manipulation. She knew how to smile through gritted teeth and make you feel 2 inches tall with just one sentence. They wanted a daughter who played varsity tennis, got straight A's, and applied to Ivy League schools with a gleaming resume full of student council leadership and internships. Instead, they got me. I was the art kid, the daydreamer, the girl who wore mismatched socks and wrote poems on the back of receipts. I didn't belong in their perfect little world, and they made sure I knew it. That night, I came down for dinner and found them both at the table. My father's jaw was clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. My mother was swirling wine like it was a ritual. "Sit down, Emily," she said coldly. I did. No one touched the food. "We've made a decision," my father said after a long silence. I blinked. "About what?" He looked at my mother, then back at me. "You're going to have to leave. Tonight." I thought I misheard him. I laughed, nervously. "What are you talking about?" "You don't respect this household," my mom snapped. "You refuse to follow rules. You embarrassed us in front of the Briarcliff Academy board with that stunt about going to art school." "That wasn't a stunt," I said, voice rising. "That was me, finally being honest about what I want." "You're selfish," she said, her voice shaking. "And we're done." They stood, just like that. "You can stay with friends," my father added, avoiding my eyes. "You're old enough." "I'm 16, I screamed. "You can't just throw me out." But they could, and they did. I was given 15 minutes to pack a bag. I tried to take my art supplies, my sketchbooks, even my childhood stuffed bear. My mother grabbed the bear out of my hands and said, "That's for children." As if I wasn't still a child. They dropped me off at the local train station in the middle of the night. No goodbye. No plan. My phone had 12% battery. No money in my account. I stood there trembling, backpack slung over one shoulder, staring at their taillights as they faded into the dark. I didn't cry at first. I was too stunned. I walked aimlessly for hours until I found a small park bench and collapsed on it. That's where I spent my first night homeless. The bench was cold, damp. The streetlight above flickered like it was mocking me. And when I finally cried, it wasn't pretty. It was a full-body breakdown, the kind that scrapes your soul raw. I wasn't crying because I didn't have a place to go. I was crying because I finally realized what they always wanted. A version of me that never existed. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted a resume they could brag about at cocktail parties. That was the night something inside me broke. But it was also the night something else lit up. A spark. A whisper that said, "They don't get to define you." Still, I had nothing. No plan. No idea where to go or how to survive. But I had me. And they would regret underestimating that. The night they left me at the train station, I thought that would be the lowest point of my life. I was wrong. Because the real pain came later. The mornings I woke up sore on benches, hungry, humiliated, invisible. No one tells you how quickly people stop looking at you when you're on the street. You become part of the scenery, a blur, a body. The first few days I wandered around aimlessly, I tried calling some classmates, but no one picked up. I crashed one night on the basement floor of a girl I barely knew from art class. She gave me a hoodie and a peanut butter sandwich, then ghosted me the next day. I was learning the hard way. When you have nothing, people treat you like nothing. I spent a few weeks couch surfing and sneaking into school showers before I dropped out completely. What was the point? I couldn't afford the bus fare, let alone textbooks. Besides, the rumors were already flying. Did you hear Emily's parents kicked her out? She's sleeping behind the diner now. She probably got into drugs. They didn't know a damn thing. Yes, I slept behind the diner sometimes. It was safe-ish, and the cook, Ramon, would toss me extra fries at night if the manager wasn't looking. One day, he caught me sketching on a napkin. His daughter's face. I had seen a photo of her taped to the cash register and drawn it from memory. "You did this?" he asked, eyes wide. I nodded, embarrassed. The next day, he gave me $100. "Sell your art," he said. "There's fire in your hands." It was the first time in weeks anyone said something kind to me. I carried that money like it was sacred. I bought a notebook, charcoal pencils, and socks. God, you don't know luxury until you've put on clean socks after sleeping outside. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to let my parents win. I was going to survive. I started selling my art in Washington Square Park. Portraits for $20. Dogs, babies, couples. Some people didn't pay. Others overpaid. I started saving, dollar by dollar. I never begged. I created. It gave me a sliver of control over a life I'd lost all grip on. When I wasn't drawing, I was in the library. Not reading novels. Reading everything about how to apply for scholarships, how to write a personal statement, how to open a bank account without a parent. I spent so many afternoons in the back corner that the librarian, Ms. Patel, started bringing me tea. One day, she sat beside me. "You're smart," she said. "What are you going to do with that?" "I want to go to art school," I whispered. She nodded like she already knew. Then she slid a pamphlet across the table. The New York Art Institute. Small, not famous, but they had full scholarships for students with extraordinary personal circumstances. I applied with everything I had. Grades from before I dropped out, a small portfolio of sketches, and an essay that bled my soul onto the page. I wrote about being 16 and abandoned, about crying on park benches, about selling art to stay alive. But mostly, I wrote about how I refused to be another statistic. I didn't expect to get in, but I did. I still remember the envelope, thick, real paper, not some digital notice. I opened it in the library bathroom and sobbed until my legs gave out. I was going to art school, on a scholarship. Everything changed after that. I moved into student housing, shared a room with a girl named Tasha who didn't ask questions. I got a part-time job at an art supply store, started doing commissions online, and painted at night until my fingers cramped. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something. I painted my pain, memories of my mother's dead eyes, my father's back as he walked away, my cold nights in the park. But I also painted hope. Girls dancing in rain, broken things blooming, hands reaching out of the dark. And people noticed. One of my professors submitted my work to a citywide student art competition. I didn't even know. I found out when someone from the gallery called and asked if I'd be attending the opening. I went, dressed in a borrowed black dress, terrified. My painting won first place. They wrote about it in a local paper, called me the artist of shadows. Some critic wrote, "Her work punches you in the ribs, then kisses your forehead." I laughed for the first time in what felt like years. That night, I walked back to my tiny dorm and looked in the mirror. Really looked. I didn't see the girl who'd been left behind. I saw someone dangerous, determined, alive. And I made myself a promise. One day, my parents would know exactly what they threw away. By the time I was 24, people started calling me Emily Carter with a kind of weight, like my name meant something. It still felt strange. hearing it said with admiration, not pity or disgust. I wasn't the forgotten girl anymore. I was the girl who turned trauma into art and pain into a portfolio that made people stop in their tracks. It didn't happen overnight, though. Success came in flickers, quiet victories that stacked on top of each other until one day I looked around and realized I was living a life I never imagined possible. After I won that student art competition, my professor introduced me to a gallery owner in Manhattan. Her name was Ingrid, and she had a sharp eye and sharper cheekbones. She walked through my tiny dorm room, glanced at the pieces stacked against the wall, and said, "You're either a genius or severely damaged. Either way, I can work with that." She gave me my first solo show in a small gallery in Soho. I called the collection Unmothered. Every piece was a variation of grief. Young girls in cold rooms, hands pressed against locked doors, watercolor streaks meant to look like tear-stained cheeks. It wasn't pretty, but it was honest. And people came. I sold every piece in one night. Some buyers were art collectors, others were strangers who saw themselves in the work. A woman in her 40s cried in front of one of the pieces and whispered, "I felt this, in my bones." That was the moment I knew. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was seen. I started getting press. First local, then national. New York Magazine did a feature titled "Brushstrokes of Betrayal." Someone on TikTok made a video essay about me that went viral. Girl gets kicked out by parents, becomes a famous artist. Suddenly, I was on panels. I was giving talks. I was being invited to elite events where people wore sunglasses indoors and talked about light and trauma like they were flavors of wine. I had a studio in Brooklyn with floor-to-ceiling windows and enough space to breathe. I hired an assistant, got my own website. I had commissions lined up for months. One piece sold for $20,000, and yet, no matter how far I rose, I couldn't forget where I started. I still had nightmares about that bench near the diner. I still flinched when I saw families hugging in public. I still hated October 14th, because no amount of praise or money could erase what they did. And then, on a completely random Tuesday afternoon, I saw it. I was scrolling through a real estate listing site, searching for studio expansion spaces. A familiar photo popped up. My childhood home, the green shutters, the brick path my father used to shovel, the window I used to sneak out of when I needed air. It was for sale. But not just for sale. Foreclosed. Turns out the perfect couple with the perfect life had hit rock bottom. Bankruptcy. Failed investments. Maybe karma finally caught up with them? I don't know. I didn't care about the why. I cared about the opportunity. I didn't hesitate. I called my agent, sent an offer. Cash. No inspection, no negotiation. I wanted that house not because it was beautiful, not because it meant something to me. I wanted it because it was a monument to my trauma, and I was going to reclaim it. When the deal closed, the realtor told me, "You must really love this place." I just smiled and said, "Not exactly." What I didn't tell him, what I hadn't even told my closest friends, was that I had no intention of living in it. I had something else in mind. But I knew one thing for sure. The same walls that heard my cries would soon hear my power. And the people who left me with nothing? They were about to learn exactly who they walked away from. I wish I could say I hesitated. That I wrestled with guilt. That I was the bigger person. But I didn't. I wasn't. And I didn't want to be. This was never just about a house. It was about power. And for the first time in my life, I had it. Not the fake kind my parents flaunted at PTA meetings or cocktail parties, but real power. The kind that comes from surviving when no one thought you would. After I bought the house, I sat on the floor of the empty living room for hours. I didn't bring friends. I didn't post it online. It was personal. I ran my fingers across the old banister I used to cling to when I was little. The same one I tripped down when my mother shoved me during an argument over a B+ in algebra. I touched the dent in the kitchen wall where my father once slammed a door so hard it cracked the plaster. This house had ghosts, and they were all mine. But here's where it gets interesting. They didn't know I bought it. Not yet. See, while I was out building a career and mending my soul, my parents had quietly slipped from their throne. They lost their money, defaulted on the mortgage, and moved into a small rental a few towns over. But that didn't last. Eventually, they ended up back at the mansion, squatting in it. Yeah, you read that right. The same people who told me I wasn't welcome under their roof were now trespassing under mine. I found out from the real estate agent. She called and said, "Small problem. The previous owners have returned. Illegally." I laughed. A full, wicked belly laugh. "They're in my house?" I said. "Yes. Technically, they're trespassing." "Perfect," I replied. I drove there that evening, alone. No cameras, no entourage. I wanted them to see me exactly as I was. When I pulled up in my black Tesla, I saw the curtains twitch. They knew someone was here. I walked up the driveway like I owned it. Because I did. And then I rang the bell. My mother opened the door, and the moment her eyes met mine, I saw it. That flicker of disbelief, of dread, of recognition. "Emily?" she whispered. I smiled. "Hi, Mom. Long time no see." She stepped back instinctively like I was holding a weapon. My father appeared behind her, pale and older than I remembered. "What are you doing here?" he asked stiffly. I stepped across the threshold. "This house," I said slowly, "belongs to me." They stared. "I bought it," I added. "Cash, closed last week." "You're lying," my mother hissed, voice trembling. I pulled out the deed and slapped it on the foyer table. "My name's on every page," I said. "Want to read it aloud together?" The silence that followed was delicious. I let them sit in it for a long moment. Then I said the words I had been rehearsing for years. "You have 48 hours to get out." My mother gasped. "You can't do this." "Oh, but I can and I am." "You'd kick your own parents out into the street?" my father asked. I tilted my head. "You mean like you did to your 16-year-old daughter?" His face turned red. "I had nowhere to go," I said. "No food, no money, and not a single person who cared. That's what you left me with. So don't talk to me about fairness." My mother tried again. "We were just trying to teach you a lesson. You were out of control." "No," I cut in. "You were out of compassion, out of love. And now, you're out of time." I handed them a formal eviction notice, signed and notarized. "You have 2 days. After that, I'm calling the cops. And trust me, this time they'll be on my side." I turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. "One more thing," I said. They looked up, desperate. "I'm not doing this because I'm angry," I said. "I'm doing this because you taught me how. You taught me coldness. You taught me to cut ties when people don't live up to your standards." I took a breath. "And you taught me how satisfying it feels to walk away." Then I left. Over the next 48 hours, they texted, called, pleaded, apologized. I didn't answer a single one. When I returned, the house was empty. Just me and my ghosts again. But this time, I wasn't the one who left. They were. After they were gone, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked through the hallways with a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching a film of someone else's life. The carpet still had the same faded pattern. The chandelier still flickered every few seconds. The walls still remembered. But I was different. I wasn't that scared girl hiding in her room anymore. I wasn't the abandoned 16-year-old crying into a coat on a park bench. I was a woman who had walked back into the fire and come out clean. I started renovating the house immediately, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to erase every trace of them. I tore down the floral wallpaper my mother adored. I ripped out the kitchen island where my father once told me I was a disappointment. I painted everything white, then added streaks of color like bruises blooming into something new. The bedroom that used to be mine? I turned it into an art studio. I set up canvases, pinned old sketchbooks to the wall, even framed that original drawing of Ramon's daughter, the one that started it all. It reminded me that kindness can come from unexpected places, and that talent, when nurtured, can become a sword. People asked me why I did it, why I kicked them out so publicly, so ruthlessly. Here's the truth. It wasn't just revenge. It was restoration. They broke something in me, and for years I thought it would stay broken. But buying that house, walking through that door, standing in front of them with power in my voice and no apology in my heart, that didn't just close a chapter. It burned the whole book and let me write a new one. But healing is messy. The press caught wind of what happened. Some people called me a hero. Others called me cold. Successful artist evicts bankrupt parents from childhood home. The headlines ran for weeks. An old classmate messaged me on Instagram. "Wow, you really did it. I'm sorry I never helped back then. We all should have done more." I didn't reply. Because that's the thing about being broken. You remember everyone who watched you fall and didn't reach out a hand. Even the silent scars. But not all the attention was bad. A producer reached out, wanted to make a documentary about my life. I said no at first. It felt too raw, too personal. But eventually I agreed. Not for fame, not for pity, but because somewhere out there there's another Emily. Another girl curled up on a cold bench, wondering if it gets better. I wanted her to see that it can. The documentary was called Unmothered: The Emily Carter Story. It streamed on Netflix, went viral. I started getting letters from teenagers, single moms, foster kids, artists who had been told they'd never make it. Some of them broke my heart. Others healed it. And slowly, the weight I'd carried for so long started to lift. I even saw my mother once, about a year later. She was walking down Fifth Avenue with a shopping bag from a discount store. We locked eyes for one brief second. She opened her mouth to speak. I shook my head. Not in anger, just finality. Because she didn't deserve a piece of who I had become. You know, people say revenge is sweet. But mine? It wasn't sweet. It was necessary. And once it was done, I didn't feel triumphant or vindicated. I felt free. Today, I run my own art foundation for at-risk youth. We give them supplies, mentorship, and shelter if they need it. No one gets left on a bench. Not on my watch. That's the legacy I care about. That's how I measure success. I live in a loft in Manhattan now. The mansion? I rent it out for artist retreats. Young creators stay there, work on their portfolios, and walk the same halls I once did. But with love and light, not fear. Sometimes I visit. I sit in the old living room and sketch. The air feels different now. Cleansed. Claimed. I reclaimed everything they tried to destroy. And when I look in the mirror, I see a woman who was abandoned. Yes, but also a woman who rose, who fought, who won. Thanks for watching. If this story hit you in the heart, if you've ever felt like an underdog, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. I have so many more stories to tell, and I'd love to have you with me. Until next time, stay strong, stay wild, and remember, sometimes the best revenge is rebuilding.